Today it's the in-floor heat. I'm going to put radiant hot water in-floor heating in the coach. It's something I've been thinking of for a long time. Warm floors are a lovely thing. I was thinking of putting pipes underneath the floor before I insulated down there, but with the complication of the tanks and all that, I said no, I'm going to put it on top of the floor. I'm using 3/8 inch PEX, special oxygen barrier PEX for in-floor heat, specifically for that. And 3/8 PEX is exactly 1/2 inch on the outside, so I'm going to put a 1/2 inch of rigid foam on the floor first, and then use a hot blade to cut out troughs in the foam for the PEX to sit in, and then I'm putting laminate flooring down over that. The reason I'm dreading it is because, well, PEX is actually not the easiest stuff to work with. I've done some bend tests on this already, and it actually bends quite nicely to the 4-inch radius, which I'm going to need even without heat, although I might use a little heat. I have to make a lot of bends. I haven't yet decided the layout I'm going to do here. I'd like to have 2 circuits, and one basically for the back of the coach, basically the bedroom, because there'll be a wall there, and part of the front so it doesn't get too cold overnight, but not necessarily having to heat the whole front of the coach every night. I think it's time to get to it. First we're going to glue down the foam. Cheers. Well, okay, so the easiest part of the project went really well. Not that I expected this part to be particularly difficult, but you know, every part of it is a little bit fun. I glued it down with my favorite high strength 3M Spray 90. Now that's a $48 can of goo, and I used 2/3 of it putting this down. God forbid it ever has to come up again. The reason I really needed it well glued down and uniformly glued down is because I'm going to cut troughs in it right through to the plywood for all the pipe. So I've got to make sure once I cut it all, this all into like little serpentine sections, it doesn't suddenly all skip around all over the floor. Now I'm not going to cut right to the plywood. I'm hoping to cut little U-shaped troughs with hot wire. You know, that's basically what I'm getting to next after I lay it all out. We'll see how well that goes. So it'll only just touch the floor at the bottom, maximizing the amount of insulation underneath the pipe. Let's see. Okay, well the third most stressful part of the job is laying out the pipe. It was awfully tempting to run the pipes long-wise, but because of the way all the indentations come in and out, it would have been quite sophisticated to find a decent return loop, because I wanted to have 2 zones. Basically, this zone feeds here, goes up, back and forth, 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 returns there. The next zone starts here, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, into the bedroom, and back out there. Much easier to manage zones by going back and forth across the floor. It does mean an awful lot more bends, but bends seem to be okay. I've actually compromised on a 5.5 inch radius, not 4, because I think that's going to be plenty for what I'm doing. And I've got the zones roughly the same length, because I may not actually run them as zones. I may just run them as 2 loops of the same zone, because there's a complication with running zones and pumps and check valves, but we'll get into that later. So now it's time to start soldering. Not soldering, but using the soldering gun to cut slots. So I've been experimenting. Here's my modified, I don't know if you can see it, I modified a soldering tip that comes with a whole big blob at the end. So I filed that all down and recurved it so that I have a nice arc. Again, I don't know if you can see it against there. There we go. And I have adjusted the size so that I get a trough in the foam that just fits nicely for the pipe. I want it just tight enough that it sort of is a snug fit.
Here I am cutting the troughs at regular speed, and well, here I am cutting it at 10 times regular speed. So you can see it was a pretty slow process. Thankfully, it worked out really well.
I must say, I'm pleased. All the slots, troughing, grooving, I don't know what you want to call it, is done. It went really, really, really well. And on to the hardest part, the most miserable. The part I've been dreading the most, and that's laying the PEX in. I'm not feeling too bad about it because the troughs worked really well and they're tight and it'll hold the pipe quite nicely. The biggest problem with working with PEX like that, especially long spools, that's a 500-foot spool. It's the only size I could get in 3/8. Is just dealing with it. Once you take the straps off that spool, it is a nightmare.
As you can see, laying in the PEX pipe went remarkably well. Amazed, really.
Well, I gotta say, anyone who knows me would know what I think of laminate click-down flooring, but I gotta admit, it goes pretty quick. This is about half an hour's work, and of course most of it is getting the first piece done. I figure I'm done this in an hour and a half, which is about how much light I have left, if that. Cheers!